Welcome to a very special edition of the Wayward Atheist podcast. I am Dustin Dark.
And I am Dave, a.k.a. the Great White North.
And if you're wondering why I am talking first, we're here to interview Dave today. We've got some feedback from some people saying that they would like to get to know us a little bit more, so we're going to be doing some interviews. So I guess let's start at the very beginning.
Well, I'll start from the very beginning. So my parents immigrated to Canada in 1977, the year I was born. They came with my two sisters, and I guess they had a pretty tumultuous relationship, to say the least. My dad liked to hit women, and he was a pretty brutal man. So I guess by the time I was 3, they got divorced. But in the meantime, I mean, he threw her down a flight of stairs when she was 8 months pregnant with me, and just, and he didn't need alcohol to be an ass. He was just an ass in general.
So, do you remember any of the violence between your parents, or is it?
My very first memory is of being hidden in a closet with my two older sisters, and me crying and them saying to me, "Shh, he'll hear you." So yeah.
So did you understand what was going on when your parents got a divorce?
I didn't, and that's also an early childhood memory. Is like when my parents were actually physically separating. Like my grandmother came because the rest of my family, not like my entire family, but my immediate family, also immigrated to Canada shortly after my parents. I actually think it was my mom's sister that immigrated first, and then my parents did, and then her parents and his dad and my uncle.
Where did you come from again?
From the UK. From the UK.
Which part specifically?
Oh, so like my dad is Welsh and my mom is English and Irish. My mom was born in South Shields and my dad was from Wales but lived in Liverpool, and that's where my parents met, were in Liverpool. So physically they immigrated from Liverpool.
Do you know why? Did they ever tell you why they came to Canada?
Well, I think because my mom's sister came here first and probably told them, like in the 70s in Canada, it was like a massive boom. So like you could quit a job and have 3 other jobs the same day. So my dad being a diesel mechanic and my mom not being educated at that point, not having her own job, I mean, it would have sounded good to them to be able to go somewhere, because in the 70s at that time there was a recession in the UK.
Okay, so what happened right after your parents got divorced? Like, how did your family split up, and what happened to you?
Well, like, so me and my sisters went with my mom, obviously. I remember the day that they split up, my grandmother and my mother taking me to my grandmother's car and my dad going the opposite direction. And of course, as a child, you cry and whatever. And, I was, I guess, probably yelling for my dad or whatever. And then like afterwards, it was good for a while. Like my mom went to university and, was doing the right thing, give us vitamins at a certain time of day. We were eating health foods and whatnot. And then she met my stepdad and things kind of went downhill from there.
How long of a good period was that? A year, 2 years?
Maybe like 3 years, I want to say. Probably from age 3 to 5.
So what did your stepdad bring in that was so toxic?
He was a brutal alcoholic. You've heard the term closet alcoholic?
Mm-hmm.
The dumb bastard would actually literally sit in a closet and get hammered.
Ooh, that's terrible.
It is. And of course, like my mom started picking up his behaviors, so started drinking and doing drugs, and like she didn't even smoke cigarettes before. She actually went to university to be a social worker, which is really funny, right? And she worked for the Children's Aid, which is even funnier or ironic when you think about it.
I think ironic is a better word than funny. But I get how you want to get humor out of the worst things. I do too. So how was your relationship with your dad during this period? How did that go?
So my dad would come around once every 6 months instead of every weekend like he was supposed to, or he would come 3 weekends in a row and then you wouldn't see him forever. And when he would come, he would have lots of presents, I guess, to try to smooth things over.
Did it work?
I guess I was pretty young, so I just didn't give a fuck, and I was just give me the presents or whatever, because I was already pretty well used to the situation, and I really hated my stepdad, so any attention from a male adult wasn't, drinking and brutalizing the family was pretty good.
All right, so how long did that go on? What's next, I guess?
Okay, so I guess that would put us at we're about 7 at this point. So my dad just completely stopped coming around, and it was probably a few years before I saw him again. And during that time, my mother's behavior got a lot worse, and she got addicted to morphine and started doing morphine every day. And my stepdad, of course, drinking. So I was pretty much allowed to just run wild. In the summer, even at 8, 9 years old, I would sleep in a tent in the backyard and be out, till 2:00 in the morning, running around. And she's working at the Children's Aid at this point, So I guess telling other people how to raise their kids and not knowing how to raise their own, which is really fucked up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, Jesus Christ, that is, once again, the ironic way that life tends to go. Were you aware at the time as to what your mother was doing?
No, because, so I guess how the addiction actually started was at the beginning of this when I said that my dad brutalized my mom. I wasn't I probably sold it a little short. So he beat her so bad that she had blood clots in her brain, and she would get massive migraines. And so I think that's what kicked off the opiate addiction was, them giving her painkillers to try to subside the blood clots.
I think that's a pretty good distinction to make there, man.
It doesn't excuse the other behaviors, and it doesn't excuse the fact that she got addicted to them because, she was very manipulative and lied constantly and would say things to manipulate even her children. So it was there was a whole mess of other behaviors, but the morphine at first, I completely understand that. And so later on, I'm just going to jump ahead a bit, and then we'll come back. So when I was in phase 2 custody, which phase 2 custody in Ontario is 16 and 17-year-olds, custody meaning in jail. One of the psychologists there was my mother's colleague back in the day, and he told me, they all knew, and they called, my mom's name is Christine, they called her Morphine Christine. Now, why this asshole chose to tell me that and embarrass me, because, it's your mother that he's telling you you know what I mean? It's kind of fucked up. But yeah, so, I guess other adults around knew what the behavior was.
I mean, that's 10 years later, 9 years later.
Yeah.
So, while it might have been pretty easy to hide early on, 10 years into an addiction, there's no hiding what's going on.
There's no, for sure. For sure not. And the fact of the matter is that, so later on, probably when I was, I'm going to say 13, they were able to operate. like technology changes, whatever. So, she had the operation, and then she just lied and said it didn't work. And because she was a social worker, they just kept giving her Demerol and morphine.
Mm.
So she never actually had to go out on a street corner to buy heroin, but I don't see it as any different.
Fair. That's fair. So how do you think this affected, like, how are your sisters doing in all this?
Well, my sisters are
older than you.
Older than me, but at this point, it's classic daddy broken home issues. Like dating older men, sleeping around, staying out all night. And by the time my sister Stephanie was 13, my mom's behavior had gotten so bad that she threw her out of the house, and she started staying with this older girl. I can't remember her name now. This has been so long. And this woman was a prostitute, and my sister being 13 and homeless, the woman that lived in the house wasn't there, and offered to pay my sister for sex. And my sister had already been sexually abused by like 2-3 different men. So her, I guess, I don't want to say moral compass, but like her bodily autonomy and just her sense of what is appropriate for an older man is way skewed at this point, right? Like, you can understand that. And, she's broke and he's offering money, so she started prostituting at that point.
How old were you at this point?
She was 4 years older than me, so I'm 9, 10, somewhere around there.
9, 10. So what was going on with you at this point? Once again, like, things are escalating with your mother, and you're sleeping in tents, and your sister's thrown out. Like, what's going on with you?
So I'm shoplifting. I'm presenting all of the behaviors that you would assume that a child would have, being raised in the surroundings that I was raised in. So I'm shoplifting. I'm fighting with other kids for no reason. I'm smoking cigarettes. I'm, stealing alcohol. Yeah, just the classic signs of a broken, abusive home.
Were your parents aware of your activities? Like, once again, your dad, your stepdad, your mother, all of them?
So my dad, not so much.
He was out of the picture?
Because he just wasn't around, right?
Yeah.
I got caught shoplifting a gang of times, and, they'd pretend to give me shit, but then they would just go back to boozing and using morphine, so it wouldn't really last long. The shit that I was given. But, like, my old man, like my real dad, came back in the picture when I was just heading into age 12. And he said, "Do you want to come live with me?" And I said, "Sure." And so I was visiting my mom's house on the weekend, and he told me that he wanted to get full custody, but that he didn't want to have to pay fees to get it. So what he wanted me to do was go to my mom's house and destroy the house and then run away. So that I don't know in his warped mind how he thought that this would work, but anyways, he thought that the courts would say, "Oh, there's obviously an issue there," and just grant him full custody and not give her any visitation rights, because me living there was contingent on me never seeing or talking to my mother again. So, what an ass, eh? Fuck. Anyways, so I don't do this for, I'm gonna say it was like maybe half a summer of going to my mom's house and then him picking me up on Sunday. And one weekend he said to me, he's like, if you don't do what I'm telling you to do, I'm not coming to get you on Sunday. And then, so I didn't do it. And, Sunday morning when I went out to meet him, my bike and my clothes were in a garbage bag on the front lawn, and I didn't hear from him again.
Ever?
Not until I was 21.
All right, so let's take a quick break there, and then we will come back and discuss what role, if any, religion played in your early childhood. So, did religion play any role in your young life for you?
So my mom's dad was a Unitarian minister.
And what is that? Let's not gloss over. I don't know what the fuck that is.
It's like really Christian light, like do whatever, hippie.
Right. It's all a metaphor. We're not taking it so seriously.
Yeah.
I have heard about some of that.
Okay, so, but he was a good man. Like he was a good man, and which is really like I a lot of my mother's behavior you can't attribute to my father, right? Like the morphine stuff, yeah, you can attribute to that, but like the manipulation and just the all around being a shitty person, which with my sister's stuff, which we'll get into in a little while, but because my grandparents were so nice and they had money, and my mom's mom at one point worked for the Queen, and then after that she made glass eyes, which is crazy, right? But she made glass eyes, and then they my grandfather being a Unitarian minister in the UK and in Canada, but in the UK they owned a fish and chip shop, so it wasn't like they were poor. So I for the life of me, I don't understand where my mother's behavior comes from, because her sister's not like that at all, and my grandparents weren't like that at all. So I don't understand what went wrong with her, you know?
Well, earlier you seemed to pin it on your stepfather.
Well, no, I don't mean. Okay, so like, the drugs, alcohol, smoking cigarettes, I'm pinning on my stepfather, but my mother was manipulated before she met my stepdad. So like in my father and hers relationship, my mother wasn't innocent. Now, that does not mean that anybody should be hitting anybody, but she would do things. So my dad is not exactly the brightest person in the world, so he would ask her a meaning of a word, and she would give him the wrong meaning and what it was, so that then around their friends he would use the word in a conversation way out of context and everybody could laugh at him. So, I mean, like, she wasn't, like, she was kind of mean as well, you know?
Mm. Anything else on your early life? And I asked you about religion and you didn't get into it.
So we would go to the Unitarian Church on Sundays, and when I was, between, say, the age that you can comprehend such a thing, like, or even say the words Jesus or whatever, until I was about 8, kind of quasi believed. Like, my grandmother would get me to pray before going to sleep if I was over at her house. And I think just culturally at that age, you kind of it's so ingrained in Western society, the Christian religion, that especially in the early 80s, that I didn't really know that you couldn't believe, or that there was even an option that it wasn't true, until I got fascinated with dinosaurs. Now, the loving God, actually, I should rephrase that. Because of my home life, the story of the loving God didn't make sense to me, like how everybody's, like everybody should be treated nicely when I wasn't, and I was just a kid and my neighbors had a great life. I was like, that didn't really make sense to me. And then I got like really interested in dinosaurs as a small child, and I had this teacher who was a really good teacher, and she taught me about the periods of when dinosaurs were, like 75 million to 100 million years ago, when they died off. And I was at my grandfather's church, and they had a Sunday school teacher in, and she was talking about Noah's Ark and the timeline of that, and the Earth being 6,000 to 10,000 years old. And at that moment, because I believed my teacher more than her, it clicked for me, and I said, "That's full of shit," because I know that dinosaurs were that long ago, and I just stopped believing it.
Man, that's actually a really refreshing story to hear of someone shedding religion in that way, instead of it starting with years and years of indoctrination.
Mm-hmm. Well, I just like, it wasn't, other than my grandmother getting me to pray at night, and like her prayers and my prayers were always just for family members, right? So it wasn't like we were praying to God, to talk to God. It was just like, dear God, keep blah, blah, blah safe, or, you know what I mean? Other than that, it just really wasn't spoken about in our everyday life. Even though he was a minister, there was no like, outside of his church and his congregation, he never spoke about it. And, like we built soapbox race cars together. He taught me how to make knives. And out of all these things that he was teaching me, never once did he bring a fucking story of Jesus or God into any of it, or never tried to give me any moral guidance in the foundation of Christianity. So I think that probably played a big role, because it could have been completely different, because I respected him very much. So if he had played it any other way, I may have been indoctrinated.
Mm. Well, that's fortunate. What a nice preacher. Well, okay, so we gave everybody a little break from the darkness. The last time when we left off.
Yes. So I'm 12. Well, right where I left off was my dad leaving my bike and my clothes in a garbage bag on the lawn, right? And that's really where shit went south. Where I just kind of, not knowingly to be pissed off at him, but I guess like it probably broke something in a 12-year-old's brain at that point, right? So I started running away frequently, which is kind of ironic in itself that he was asking me to run away and I never did. But then I started to, and I started to really start, doing more petty crimes, not just shoplifting. And I ended up in a young offenders facility for the first time when I was 12. And they sent me for psychiatric evaluation.
What got you there?
What got me there was the court asked for it, because I guess I would. To the thing. I want to say it was break and enter. Yeah, breaking and entering got me there. I broke into a house and stole the credit cards that were in there, and we hung around with this guy that was a lot older than us, like probably in his 20s, and we went to the mall and he pretended he was our stepdad, and we bought a bunch of shit, and then got a hotel room and got a bunch of hash and some beer. And the fucking cops came to the hotel.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, and because we ordered a pizza, and they came as the pizza guy. like he put a fight, like, yeah, they put the fucking, yeah. So anyways, so the courts ordered a psych evaluation, and, the psychologist at the time said that my personality trait, or the way that my life had gone, I was probably, or I would say that he said I would definitely never change, which I did. And it's kind of fucked up to say that a kid's never going to change, right? Because my, like, you know, your brain is not developed at that point even. So how do you really know? And had I not been in the home life and had the parents that I had and the living situation, I can guarantee I would have been different. You know, so you take the person out of that situation, which I took myself out of that situation a lot later on in life. You're bound to change, right? I would think. Anyway, so I think I got 30 days in the young offender facility, and when I got out, my mother just kicked me out of the house. So I went to live with my prostitute sister, and we stayed in like seedy hotels and on friends' couches and shit. And that was pretty much the beginning of my actual criminal and drug dealing career, was at that point.
You just, what do you mean by actual?
Like the shit before was like petty.
Okay, you're,
you know.
Is this when you? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Yeah.
But is this when you graduated from kind of a passive to an active?
Yeah. This is when you know, I got to eat, basically.
Was that it, or was that the justification?
That was like both. I did have to eat, but I enjoyed it at the same time, because I guess like it's the way life is, and for normal fucking sane people, they wouldn't know this, but you get a big adrenaline high when you commit crimes that are sketchy or that you can get caught for. There's like a high, and some people, and probably me at the time, get addicted to the feeling of that adrenaline, kind of like a base jumper or somebody that skydives, because it's an extreme activity, right? So you're getting that adrenaline rush, and then, like, you know, notoriety amongst the idiot peers that you hang out with, and just to clothe and eat and you know, have a place to stay.
What's going on with your other sister? I'm curious.
Yeah,
now.
so my other sister, like my oldest sister, is probably still at home at this point, but she did become a prostitute as well afterwards. Yeah. And so did my stepsister, because my stepdad had 3 kids as well.
Wow. Did you live with his kids as well as your siblings?
No, not all at once. I think like his sons at certain points would come and live with us, but his, like, their mom was pretty normal, and they had like a nice house and everything. So
that
would have been a better situation for them to be at.
Okay.
But my stepsister, did all right in the end. She's a lawyer now, so
that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
So how did all this play out? I hate to put it that way, but what happened when you pursued that? Sorry, I know it's a loaded question.
Yeah, it's a loaded question. Well, it didn't pan out, if that's what you mean. It wasn't like a good situation, and I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. But I mean, like, I'm not going to lie and say I didn't have fun, because my definition of fun back then was probably a lot different than other people's. But I mean, like, I was in and out of young offender facilities at that point. Like, I got arrested for my first armed robbery at age 13. I got off. Witnesses didn't show up to court. Well, they tried to, but my sister kind of squashed that for me. Her friends were bikers. Anyways, and, you know, just in and out. I'd go in, and then they would, because it's not a big place where I grew up. It's like 120,000 people. So they would just know to watch me, right? Like, I'd get out. They would know that I was out. And if you watch me long enough, you're going to get me for something. Mm. So I remember I was out for, like, I'd done 6 months. So I should tell that story. Just like the whole grouping of this one, say, spring into summer. So I got out of the young offender facility, and they were releasing me to my sister, who's a prostitute, which it's fucking crazy, right? But anyways, so they're releasing a kid who's, I think I'm turning 15 at this point, or I am 15. Turning 15. To my prostitute sister. But the facility that I was in it's not in the city. It's like out of town, and nobody fucking showed up to get me. So they're like, what do we do? They had this kid, and I was no longer in custody. So anyways, they drove me to the house that my sister and her friend were renting at this time, and she's fucking passed out, wasted from the night before. So that wasn't exactly a great start to getting out of jail. But we would have like massive house parties there, and like the whole street would be full of cars, and people would be calling the cops and passed out on the lawn in the front, and it was fucking pretty wild. But me and my friends started sounds so embarrassing to say, we started a criminal gang, like what we thought was like an organization. And we called ourselves the Untouchables, but we're like young teens. So we started fucking, we would break into people's houses during the day, and we would buy sheets of acid, sell the acid, and eat lots of the acid. And then at night, we would go and break into businesses that didn't have alarms. And have you ever seen the movie Hudson Hawk? Okay, anyways, it's a Bruce Willis movie. He's a cat burglar. And so we're up on a roof, and we'd scoped out this antique shop. And I'm not trying to glorify this. It's just, I find this one story funny, and you probably will too. And we get a skylight open on the top, and we're fucking gunned on acid. And it's like, you know, like 20, 30 foot drop down to the bottom. And we're like, fucking, how the fuck are we going to get down there? And I was with my buddy, and he was probably 4 years older than me, but a lot bigger than me because I was really small at that time. And we look over and we see coaxial cable, you know, for like setting up your cable television. And there was a lot of it. So he's like, we'll tie it around your waist and we'll lower you down. And he started lowering me, and I got maybe 3 feet, and it snapped, and I fucking went crashing down into the fucking store, landed on the fucking counter, the register, smashed everything. Still stuck with the plan. I got the back door open for him, but I don't know. Imagine me fucking falling from a ceiling.
You should be ashamed of yourself. Anyway,
I should be, but it's funny.
No, it's a funny story. It's a funny story.
So we do this for like a whole summer, right? And we have like a young offender police here, like it's separate police. I don't know if you guys have that down south, but it's like adult cops. Unless you do something, you'll get arrested by adult cops. But if it's like an investigation, then it's young offender detectives. I
wouldn't know. I was a good kid.
Okay, so anyways, they had it out for us bad because we were fucking dicks, man. Like,
because it's their job to have it out for you.
Yes, and you know what though, deservedly so, because fucking breaking into people's homes is fucking shitty. It's super shitty.
Yes. I don't want to cut you too much slack on that, Dave. Like, I mean, you did your time. You got caught. You have the record. I just want to make sure we're not glorifying that type of thing. Like, it's
and I also want to say that I never broke into anybody's house as an adult, right? Like when my brain was fully functioned or fully, like my, how do I say that? My personality's fully developed and I'm no longer like I'm not, it's not an excuse, but it's a reason. And I was a product of a certain upbringing. So like in my mind, if I was looking at a child that was, showing the same behaviors and doing the same things that I did that had the same upbringing as me, I would understand it.
I think that's fair. At the same time, acid at that young of an age, I can't imagine is going to lead to very many good decisions. Just that the nature of the drug is
yes, it's too young. It is far too young.
It is far too young
to be fucking around with hallucinogenics.
And I can imagine breaking into the store on acid. You crazy fucker. Let's move on. I guess. What?
Okay, so it's like a whole summer of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like every day we're doing this, and finally they catch up with us, and they have some stuff on us or whatever. And what they did was, so they arrested me. They brought me to court, and when they bring the charges, because they couldn't prove most of it, they just whacked me with like 56 charges, so that my lawyer would tell me to plead bargain on the one or two things that they did have enough evidence to convict me on, so that it's not going to trial or whatever. And because they knew that I probably did the rest, and if I didn't, then I did a lot more to deserve that.
Do you think that was fair?
Well, I don't think justice should be an eye for an eye or whatever. I think that if I did them, and they had the evidence, then they should charge me for it. But I don't think that they should just whack people with a whole shit ton of charges just to get them to plea bargain on 2. Right? Like I think that's dishonest, but I think that as an adult, when I think of the justice system, I think fairness, and I think like evidence and truth is what matters.
Okay, so what was your sentence for?
So for those 2 charges that I plea bargained to, I got 6 months, but it was my first time being sent to like a maximum security facility that had candy cane fences, and like I won't call it a cell because I'm still only 15, so it's more like a room. But it's like a big metal door. Everything's brick. There's bars on all the windows. Basically, you aren't getting out. But because I was who I was, when I first arrived there, they wouldn't let me go into the big yard because they were worried that people would come and cut the fences, or I would just cause problems with the other young offenders or try to escape or whatever. So when I got my outside time, I was in like this little tiny fucking courtyard type of thing where people eat their lunch or whatever they do. It's like, it's all just brick walls around you, and it's maybe 20 feet by 10 feet. And my exercise was walking around in circles out there.
Okay, so I asked you this earlier. I guess I'm going to ask it in a different way. I understand that they charged you in an unfair way, and they got you there in an unfair way, but do you feel like you deserved it?
At the time, no.
What about now?
Because, for sure. For sure. I did a lot of fucking shitty things, and there are consequences for behaviors, and I can't say that I didn't know right from wrong, because even though my parents were screwed up, I still, like, at points in my life had good adults teaching me good things, like my mom's dad. He died when I was pretty young, like 10 or 11, but I learned a lot from him. And now that my behavior has changed, I can see myself kind of taking the good things that I learned as a youngster, and not taking the bad behaviors in. Like when I think back on experiences of how I'm gonna behave in life, I completely ignore the messed up stuff, and I just look for like take my dad, for instance. He was a real fucking shitty guy when he lost his temper, but he could also be the nicest, coolest fucking dad going. And the one thing that I kind of, I don't want to say emulate, but that I took from him was that he was a really hard worker. Like a super hard worker. If there was overtime, he took it. And he worked like way out in bush camps, and no matter what, he always drove home. He could have stayed in the camps, but he would drive home, and then like when we were there on the weekends, because don't get me wrong, like he did come and get me and my sisters on some weekends, but he would drive home, and then because he would have to be back at work the next day, he would get up at 3:30 in the morning to drive back to work. So just at work, when I was a child, obviously that didn't mean shit to me, but as an adult, looking back on that, making sure that you get home when your kids are actually there, and having a work ethic, not turning down work, and working the hours that you need to pay for your bills is like the one thing that I would take from him.
Okay, so anything notable about this particular stay in juvenile?
No. Other than the fact that I did actually, yes, I'm lying. I kind of, not lying, but I'm skipped over a thing. So after they let me, I guess, back into fucking general population and whatnot, it's obviously young offenders facility, so they try to rehabilitate you, and with good behavior you get rewards. So after long enough, you get what's called a TR, a temporary release. Now it could be an escorted or it could be non-escorted, but I was good enough, and I had this in my head that that's what I was doing, that I eventually got TRs, and on the first TR I escaped.
You son of a bitch.
Yes, I was.
And they obviously caught you, right? You're not still a wanted man, so how did they get you?
No, well, they didn't catch me in the city where I grew up. I actually, so one of the things that we used to do as far as businesses, it's pertinent to the story that I'm going to tell this. So you know how like used car dealerships will have that like little shitty fucking shack in the middle of it with all the cars around it?
Yes. Like
smaller used. So we used to break into those and take all the keys and take the cars. So when I escaped, or ran away more like it, because I was on a TR. Escape would be if you're actually there. We stole all the cars out of this car dealership, and then we just drove to Winnipeg, which is 8 hours away from where I grew up. I didn't know anybody either, and I was like super young. So, but we had done a bunch of break and enters before we left, so we were selling like shit out of the trunks of the car in Winnipeg. Like we had some shotguns and stuff, and I guess somebody saw us doing it, so they called the cops. and the cops came, and they almost got me at that point, but I was able to run away. And he was chasing me, and I see a flashlight go flying by my head, like he was throwing everything he had on him, I guess, to try to stop me or whatever. And then a few days later, they caught me, and they sent me back to Ontario afterwards to finish my time.
Okay. Well, holy shit. What happened when you got out? What was waiting on you?
Okay, well, when I got out, I went to live with my sister again. And at this point, again, I started doing more crime, except, I'm starting to sell drugs too, as well as doing property crimes and robbing people. And somebody ratted me out, and they came and they got me with a bunch of stuff, and so I had some charges pending as well.
When you say stuff,
I mean drugs.
What I'm saying is, what do you want to get into? What kind of drugs you had? Are you trying to skim over?
We'll just skim over that.
Let's skim over that. Okay,
we'll skim over that. Yeah.
All right, I found your line. All right, that's good. Let's go on.
Let's just say it wasn't weed. Okay.
Right. It wasn't lollipops. It wasn't weed. All right. So
it wasn't lollipops.
They caught you with a bag of
coke,
and then go ahead. Okay.
Yeah.
I dragged it out of you, son of a bitch.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So I had some charges pending already, and so there's a book out there. It's called Lawyers Gone Bad, and basically there was a Crown attorney in the city that I grew up in named Agnew Johnson, and he had an affinity for young prostitutes, and my sister was one of the prostitutes that he liked to see, and she told me that he had roughed her up a little bit. So me, being high in acid, grabbed one of my friends and went and broke into his house and was waiting for him because I was going to fuck him up. But the neighbor saw us go in because we were obviously too fucking wrecked on hallucinogens to fucking realize that when you're kicking in a door in broad daylight that on a weekend and people are home, that somebody's going to see you and call the cops. Anyway, so they arrested me at that point.
You're a savage,
again.
Dave. You were a savage.
Yeah. I'm 16 at this point.
Yeah.
Well,
that's when we're the most dangerous, right?
Yeah, for sure, especially in my kind of situation that I'm in. So they arrest me and they take me in, and I'm in for a little bit, and my sister says to Agnew Johnson, like, look, fucking get my brother out or I'm gonna write a statement against you. And so he didn't fucking get me out, because I don't know how he was gonna do that anyways. I think she's kind of just like not understanding how things work. Like, he was an adult Crown attorney and had nothing to do with young offenders court whatsoever. But so he didn't get me out, and so her and I told the cops everything we knew about it, right? And it kind of disappeared after that. Like, the fact that we had written statements against them kind of just disappeared, and nobody said anything about it for the longest time. And I got 12 months for breaking into his house. And so I'm in jail. And when I get there, the sergeant, because now I'm at phase 2, which is basically adult, it's on the same property as the adult jail, and they use the same guards, and like the head whatever of the shift is called a sergeant. And I don't know if it was like immediately when I got there, but like after being there a little while. So like me and my sister, I'm not going to say we're fucking famous, but people knew who we were and what we were about. And he says to me, considering what your sister does, don't be surprised if she's not alive when you get out. And I just took it as that fucker being a cunt and kind of wanted to attack him, but didn't. So maybe I want to say I got in there, June, and by January his prediction came true. She was murdered while I was in jail.
So you found out why you were in jail?
And it was him that told me.
Same guy.
So he didn't really tell me, but he was in the office when the phone call came in, and my stepbrother was on the phone, and he's like, "Yeah, phone call," and everybody was all like the staff or the guards were looking all like weird to me. You know what I mean? So I was like, whatever. And so I get on the phone, and my stepbrother says, Dave, Stephanie didn't make it home last night. And I knew exactly what he meant when he said it, but I was just like, what do you mean? And then he's like, they found her in a stoned up. And I was like, oh. And then kind of just blacked out after that point, and went back into the dorm and broke my hands in the washroom, punching cinder blocks.
How much time did you still have left?
Oh, 6 months.
How did that go?
It wasn't easy. I blame myself for being in jail when it happened. Like yeah. If only I wasn't in here, then it wouldn't happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and surely now you know that's not the case.
Well, like I know that I shouldn't blame myself, but you still have the thought, like, if only I was out, maybe she wouldn't have been out that night, or do you know what I mean? Like, you play things in your head, and I don't blame myself anymore for it or anything like that. It was rough. They were the jail was good about it. They let me go to the funeral. They actually gave me 3 days. So, like, they released me for 3 days, which was good. That I wasn't just like go to the funeral in fucking shackles, because they very easily could have done that, right? Could have just sent me in shackles and made me look like a real fucking schmuck in front of other people. But like, she was very popular, and the funeral, my grandfather had long been dead since then, but they had the funeral in the church that he was a minister at, and like, it was standing room only, and so it was nice to see a lot of people come out for her. But like, my mom pretending that she was like all fucking, and I'm sure she was, but man, like, she knew exactly what my sister was having to do, and just like didn't really do anything to stop it, and kicked her out numerous times, because obviously in those years we would end up back at my mom's house for a little bit, but like kicked her out numerous times. So it's just like, if blame is to go anywhere, I think it's on my parents, because they both knew exactly what was going on, and were just too shitty of people to not be better parents and to not try to stop that. Because I look at my kids, and I can't imagine throwing them away, or even knowing that they put themselves in a situation where they're hurting themselves, and chance of survival is pretty fucking slim to none. And if it's not survival of life, then it's survival of your freedom, because you're eventually going to end up behind bars. You know what I mean? Like, I look at my kids and I just can't imagine. Like, I love my children. I can't imagine, like the things that an argument that Parker and I had today was that, if you want to eat your gummies that are in your lunch, you have to eat your apple first. And his apple came home and his gummies didn't. Like, that is just so fucking foreign to the way that I grew up, but like, it's really good,
So, I don't really know a more polite way to ask this, and you don't have to answer. What do you think happened to your sister?
So we wrote a statement against Agnew Johnson, and like I said, it disappeared for a little bit. But after my sister was killed, it came back up. And it came back up in a big way. And it turned out that it wasn't just him, but that he was kind of like, there was other people that were like involved in a sex ring, and that she wasn't the first prostitute that went missing that was kind of involved in that little circle, and was found in the same area as where my sister was killed. Another prostitute was, so he was obviously a prime suspect in her murder, but he ultimately wasn't charged with it. Somebody else was, and basically what they said was she was picked up by a John, and that he hit her in the head with a tire iron a bunch of times, but she didn't die from that. She actually froze to death because it was like minus 40 something. So like she was found in a snow dump where like the city dumps the snow. But by the time she was found, the wolves had gotten to her, so they could only identify her by tattoos on her legs.
Okay.
And when I mean wolves, I mean actual
wolves. Actual wolves. Yes, the animals got to her. Yeah.
Obviously, back then, like I'm sorry, I'm missing points here. Like, I'm really trying to. It's difficult. It was a long time ago, and it's a difficult thing to talk about. So I've kind of jumped around, and then realized after that I kind of skipped ahead on some things. Let me finish the Agnew Johnson thing, and then okay. So he was ultimately charged with soliciting underage prostitutes. And then like having sex with minors or whatever. And, I was subpoenaed, to testify against him. I went, and ultimately in the end I didn't have to, because they had like, the actual underage, one of the underage prostitutes that he had sex with testify against him. But he was the fall guy for the, I guess the more powerful people in the group. It's all written in a book called Lawyers Gone Bad. If people want to read about it, you can get the book on Amazon. But like, so the funny thing is about like the person that they said killed her, and I'm so not into conspiracy theories, so take this for what you will. They said that how they found him was that, they were looking for a truck that had 3 tires the same and 1 different. There's 120,000 people that live in the city, and then 9 months after she was found dead, they they found like, I don't know, like a tiny piece of evidence in the truck or whatever. It just seemed really dubious. I mean, if they had enough evidence to convict him, fine, whatever. He's the guy that did it, but it just seemed really, really dubious at the time that, you know, like, and maybe 3 weeks before she was actually killed, she had, called my godparents and had told my godfather that she was really scared and that she just felt like some people, some important people were out to get her, and then that happened. So yeah, like, I'm not saying that that's what it is, because obviously there's no evidence for that other than like circumstantial and kind of wishy-washy stuff, but it does seem suspicious to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No. Honestly, how do you respond or know what to say or form an opinion on this type of thing, man? It's just it's
we know that we know that these types of conspiracies do happen. These are the types of conspiracies that do happen, not intergalactic fucking child molesters, but legit corruption.
I'll tell you what, we're at the 1 hour mark. Do you want to take a break and come back in 5 minutes?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so you were talking about the circumstances with your sister. Do you remember where we left off?
I'll try to jump back in. So you kind of asked me how it was being in jail for the rest of that time afterwards, right?
Mm.
It was very strange, and I dreamt about her a lot. And, you know, they kept on sending me to psychiatrists and stuff I remember the preacher at the jail, probably Catholic, I would say, you know, tried to talk to me, which was pretty funny. I didn't take it actually in the way that I would take it now. Back then I didn't believe, but I wasn't like, I didn't like talk to other atheists, and I didn't like say I'm an atheist. I would just, if somebody asked me about God or whatever, I would just say it's fucking bullshit. And I actually thought that the term humanism was atheist, right? Like, I didn't know that there was a distinction between the two. But anyways, so I just had a bad attitude, and, you know, my sister had just been killed, and I thought, preachers or all that shit was bullshit. So I probably just gave him like really sarcastic, snippy remarks. And, anyways, so, you know, I finished out my time. It would have been very surreal, because like, it's so strange, because you're taken, or not just taken, but you've got yourself taken away from society. Like, you're completely away from society. You don't really know what's going on. And then like the family member that you're the closest with is now gone. So like, your world is just not the same anymore as when you went in. So I got out, and kind of at that point, I'm 17, and I just go right back to my old behaviors. And but I left the city I was in, and got arrested in another city, and I got sent back to jail, and I got another year in jail. And during the time that I was in there, they arrested the guy, Robert Wayne Veely was his name, for murdering my sister. And he was, the trial and everything happened while I was in jail, which is probably better off for me because I probably would have done something really stupid.
Did he maintain his innocence in his trial?
Yeah, and he also appealed it.
And that didn't go for him? He stayed in jail?
Yeah, that didn't.
Is he still alive today? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't know on purpose.
Fair enough.
Yeah, because, I have kids. So they need me.
After this last year, what happened?
Yeah, so I get out and I'm 18 at this point, and I kind of like slip back into a lot of my old behaviors. Like I start selling drugs again. I'm not really doing property crimes per se, but I'm fist fighting a lot, and I start partying a whole bunch, and this goes on for a while, like a year or two. And then I kind of like, I don't want to call it an epiphany, but I just like looked at who I was now that I was an adult, or like a quasi-adult, I would say you are at that point. Like legally you're an adult, but I certainly didn't have the maturity level of a real adult at that point. And I just was like, I am no different now than 5 years ago. And all the people around me are the same as they were 5 years ago. And I'm going to end up dead or in jail for the rest of my life, or just be doing the exact same thing I'm doing right now in the next 5 years. But I didn't really know how to change it. You know what I mean? Like even to get that started. So my only thought was, if I can just get away from all these people, get away from anybody that knows me, get away from the city that I grew up in, then, I can just start over, because nobody's going to know who I am, and I can act and be anybody I want to be. Like, I don't have to be the same person. I don't even have to tell them anything about me. So, it's so stupid. To get the money, I did one last score, and then I left, and I never went back.
Okay, so how did you decide where you're going and what you're doing and?
Well, I kind of just headed west, and like I know, like in the States, you can drive to the next city. It's not that far, but like in Canada, it's really fucking spread out. So if you go to the next city, you won't see anybody that you know, or you know what I mean. Like it's like 8 hours away. So I just gradually started heading west, and so like I went to the first spot, and I actually got a job, not the profession that I'm in now, but doing something else. But I was still partying a lot and doing other stupid things. But the one thing that I learned was that you can leave the situation, and you can go to where nobody knows you, but you're still there, right? You know what I mean? Like you and everything that you are, and all the baggage that you carry on your own shoulders, it goes with you. So I still have the same kind of thought process and the same kind of destructive thoughts and habits, not doing really crime or anything, but it's just like you start those are the people that you kind of gravitate towards. So it's not like I'm going there and then I'm hanging out with fucking accountants or whatever, you know? I left that city too and headed further west. And for a little bit, it's the same thing, right? It's new. Nobody knows you, and you can kind of pretend to be a different person. Except this time I kind of got caught up with some of the people that I would have been caught up with where I grew up, and I started selling crack. And I did that for a little bit, but realized that I was really fucking up, and then I fucking left again. And the next time there, I just was dead set. I'm just gonna pretend to not be that person, and I'm not gonna do those behaviors. And but I started actually doing drugs. Like, started doing all the drugs, not like crack and that kind of stuff, but like hallucinogenics again, and tons of ecstasy. And I would actually credit MDMA to me not being as violent as I was. Believe it or not, I don't want to say correlation, but it was around the time that I started doing that I stopped having like feelings of wanting to punch everybody.
I mean, well, if it worked for you and it's real for you and you can trace it back to that, like who?
I know they use it for, they're studying it for PTSD, and that, like, they've seen really good success. I was never diagnosed as having PTSD, but I'm sure I probably did. You know?
Okay, so did you graduate school?
No, I didn't even make it out of grade 10.
Okay, so you've got a criminal record. You don't have a full education. Yet you are a business owner today. What the fuck, Dave?
Yeah, so I needed work, and I actually started out like in a different trade than I'm currently in. Like right now, I do full renovations, but I actually started out as a painter, and I lived in an apartment building, and I fucking was walking up to the building, and I saw all these guys working, and I went up to the boss, and I was like, "Are you hiring?" And he's like, "Yeah, you have experience." And I lied and told him I had 6 months experience. And at the end of the day, he comes up to me, he's like, "I can tell you don't have any experience, but you work really hard, so I'm going to keep you on." And from that point on, I always worked. I partied like crazy, but worked for the weekends.
All right. So, you were offered the right opportunity. You worked hard, and you were taught a trade.
Yeah. I took the bull by the horns, and I worked painting apartment buildings and stuff for a while, and then I moved again to Victoria, British Columbia. Actually, I would have went to Toronto first. So I went back across the country east to Toronto, lived in Toronto for a while, partied like crazy there, and then kind of like went to Victoria. And when I went to Victoria, I joined the union, and I got a job as a civilian naval contractor painting the Navy ships and such, like the painters union.
So I guess the next thing is, how did you meet your wife?
I was doing, so I switched trades and I got into doing other things, and I was doing work at the university that she was going to, and that's how we met. And then that's kind of like what, like I was already, like I had been pretending to be, I don't want to say pretending, but so at first I thought I was pretending to be a good person, or I don't want to say good person, but a person that didn't do the things that I had done, that eventually it just fit, right? Like I was that person after a while. Like, so I just would get up and go to work every day and, I'd still go out and have a good time or whatever, but I wasn't like selling drugs. I wasn't fighting with people. I wasn't, the thought of doing any of those things never even came into my conscience anymore. And then I met my wife, who has never done a street drug, never smoked a cigarette in her life. And, that kind of just like really helped me, I guess, to kind of normalize. It's interesting at times because like she lived a completely different life than me, grew up like upper middle class. And so it can get pretty
well. It's this is just from the outside, but it sounds like you didn't just. It sounds like you found a better way. It really just sounds like you. I don't want to use the word have to, but it's really easy not to sell crack when you have money in the bank account. And frankly, it's hard to start selling crack when you have money in the bank account.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, no, yeah, that's a total legit point. And, I guess for working for myself, that came out of just me not being happy with, so like we were in BC and I was like really making good money out there because I'd work in Alberta and in BC. And, when you work on the refineries in Alberta as a tradesman, you work tons of overtime, like 7 days a week. And the wages are so high, you're pulling in like $15K a month. So, when she wanted to have kids and we moved to Ottawa, where her parents are, like the union wasn't strong here, and it's just the wages weren't as high, and I wasn't really willing to work for, or I didn't want to work. It wasn't like if I had to, I would have. I just didn't want to work for the wages that they were offering, so I just put an ad out and started working for myself. And that's how that came about. Because like it's when you're a tradesman working for yourself, it's like you don't have any overhead and you don't really have to have all you really need in the beginning is your tools to do the job, and like any really expensive tools if you're taking on a big job, you just buy it with the deposit that they give you, because I'm not into financing people's work for them. So like I take a check for materials and like my gas and everything while I start the job. So I take 30% of the job up front and then another 50% when 50% of the job is done, and then the rest at the end of the job. It's just so like I haven't done a whole big job and then I go to get paid and they're like, well, we don't have the money or whatever, so I'm not left holding the bag. I also don't want to be paying for people's material. Like they're the ones that having the work done. Why should I pay for it? You know what I mean? So like, it's not like I started a fucking financial company or anything like that. It's just like I had a skilled trade and I kind of knew how to put out ads and do estimates and stuff, because in trade school they teach you how to do estimates. So I already had the knowledge of doing the estimates, and that's like half the battle is selling the job. It's like 90% of it is actually selling it to the person.
It's the same push to self-actualize that would lead you selling drugs and just deciding to start doing the labor directly yourself and cut out the middleman. So I respect that. To be honest, I mean, do you think I'm being off course there?
Mm-hmm.
You had learned early in your life that if you're going to make it, you got to do it your fucking self. You can't wait on other people to give you all the opportunities.
No, I don't at all. Yeah. How to hustle. Yeah. As a tradesperson, if you're willing to put in the hours, working for yourself, you can make a damn good living. Now, I'm not super rich or anything like that, but compared to the way that I grew up, it's a completely different fucking reality. Like, the reality is just so different. Like, I showed you pictures of the house I grew up in online. Like, it's falling apart, and it's a completely different reality. And like, I don't have an education. I would say, like, somebody that's starting out in life, that two ways that I personally know how to make a decent living for your family is either you have to go to university or college, or get a skilled trade. There's nothing wrong with being a tradesman. It's a perfectly respectable thing, and anybody that looks down upon tradespeople just don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
Mm. So, how long between getting married and your firstborn?
Let's see. So I should clarify it. We're not like actually married. I don't believe in actually getting married.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah. No, I don't believe in that shit. I don't believe that you should go down to either church or even just the justice of the priest and profess your fucking love for another person. That I think that's a load of bullshit. The laws are pretty much the same for common law marriage is what they call it here in Canada. I bought her an engagement ring and a wedding band. I just don't think we need to. And plus, like, weddings are such a waste of money, dude. Like, it's out of control.
You're winning over all the ladies now.
I know.
All right, so I guess let's.
So you said no. You said the years between 2007 and my first was born 2009.
Okay, so it was 2 years between you convincing your wife that you shouldn't get married, and
yes,
she bore your first son for you. Okay,
yes.
And who is that young one?
That's Rain.
Tell us a little bit about Rain. A lot of our listeners know, but
yeah.
let's hear about Rain.
So Rain has severe autism. He wasn't verbal for the longest time. I mean, it's not like he's a speed talker now or anything like that, but he has been re-diagnosed as verbal. So that's pretty fucking good.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't want to spend too much time there because we talk about Rain a lot on the show.
Yeah.
What about the lesser known Beatle, as I like to think of him?
Parker.
Parker. Yes. Tell us a little bit more about Parker.
So Parker is 5. He was born 2 years after Rain. He's actually super advanced. He legit started walking at about 7.5, 8 months, like actually walking. Started talking super early. He is orange belt in jiu-jitsu already. Goes to school. Happy guy. Funny. Loves Mario, like Super Mario Brothers. Plays it on his DS. I think I've probably bought him about 8 Mario shirts now. He wears one every day of the week. Obsessed.
Mario was a big part of my childhood, so that's actually really nice to hear. Hopefully he won't end up with a mushroom tattoo on his neck. But we'll see. We'll see what it does to him, huh?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, I've already, like, so with them, like, even before we knew Rain was autistic, like, their lives are going to be so much different than mine. Like, we started straight away with an education saving account, and like, I don't know if you guys get this down south, but here you get what we call baby bonus checks. So, like, for having kids, the government sends you money, like, even if you're not broke. So we don't even touch those. We just put them directly into a bank account, and, like, I figure that so it'll either pay for Parker's university, because obviously I don't think Rain's going to be going. Or what I've decided is, like, he can have the money, but he has to get into a trade, like get an apprenticeship, and then he can use the money from that for a down payment on a house. So he's already starting out with a house, which will be huge, you know?
Mm. So I guess the next question is, why am I talking to you right now, Dave? Why did you buy the microphone? Why did you start the show? Why did you invite me onto it? What the fuck are you doing?
I guess like we kind of skipped over where I became an actualized atheist and all up on the fucking whatever. So like back in when podcasting first became popular, yeah. So like 2006-ish, 2007, I started listening to podcasts, and I was listening to atheist podcasts, but I still wasn't like, and I was on a bus one day because my license was suspended at the time, and I'm at the bus one day, and I'm going by. It was super annoying too because I'd go on the bus with all my tools. It'd be rush hour. People would be all fucking pissed off at me. It'd be all stinky. It was awesome. And there's a sign on the other bus, and it says, "There's probably no God, so stop worrying and get on with your life." And it's not like I didn't already not believe in God and I hadn't been listening to the podcast from America, but for some reason seeing it in the city that I lived in kind of made me want to know more. So I started devouring all the debates from the usual suspects like Hitchens, Dawkins, Harris, listening to philosophy and obviously more and more podcasts, but I still wasn't inspired to actually take part in any atheist groups or, I guess, quote unquote, the community until I listened to Cash on Atheists on Air. I don't know what it was about him or his show, but I really believed him when he was saying the things that he was saying, when he would say that, like, that he loved everybody. I believed him, and others I find it kind of fake, or they're saying it to gain something, where with him I believed him. And I didn't have a Facebook account at this point because of my past. I didn't want people that I didn't want to talk to anymore hitting me up on Facebook and annoying me. So I opened up a Facebook account and I joined the group for Atheists on Air, and I met some other people, and they were podcasting. And when I was listening to podcasts, I always thought that I could do it, and it seemed like it would be fun to do it. And I like talking. I have opinions. They may not always be right, but I like sharing my fucking opinions or forcing it upon other people, whichever way you want to look at it. And these two people in particular were part of a podcast, and they were having an episode, should you spank your kids or not? And they wanted to know from me how I disciplined my son, Rain, who's autistic. And I went on and said, like, you don't discipline autistic children and or toddlers either, because their behavior is not done in a way that, and you don't spank any, like, I don't agree with spanking, period. But I mean, like, even to discipline them, toddlers and autistic children, their behavior is not done with the intention of being bad, or I don't want to say bad, mischievous, or like out of line. There should be consequences for behaviors, but no punishments. So after an hour and a half of me talking their ears off about my philosophy on parenting and not spanking. They're like, you should start your own podcast. And I was like, you know what? You're right. And I did. And that's how I got here.
So I guess we're kind of closing things up here. Is there any life lessons that you want to share? Like how do you think this complex past affects you now as well?
I have a deep understanding of what it's like to be poor. I believe that privilege is an economic thing, not anything else. I guess like you can have privilege if you're like, it's really hard to explain. So like a black person with money or anybody else with money is going to have more privilege than the poor person. I think like real privilege comes with money. Real privilege meaning like fucking a roof over your head, food to eat, car to drive in, go on family vacations, all those things. And I have an understanding of what it's like not to have that, and been at the very, very, very bottom and know what it takes to get out of that. So I think that hard work is second to none. Like you have to work hard in life, and no matter what you want to do, you should try to be the very best at it. And I try to be the very best at my job. I know like it's not realistic that I'm going to be the very best at it, but I certainly try to be the very best at it. And I think, work harder than the guy standing next to you, no matter what it is you're doing.
What would you say to Dave 20 years ago? Like what would you say to you when you were really getting into deep shit, man?
Go to school. Yeah, I would have told me to go to school. And be nicer. So
you chose not to go?
No, I didn't choose not to go. I didn't think I could.
You have to unpack that for me. What do you mean?
I thought it was out of my wheelhouse.
Just like public school?
No, I mean to university.
Okay, gotcha.
So me 20 years ago, I'm 20 years old.
I'm sorry. I thought I pushed a little further back there after I said that. You when you're really at the height of your troubles.
Okay, the height of my troubles. Oh, man. I often think about this. And me at 16.
Okay.
Me at 16. Or I was 17. I was getting out of jail. There was a female guard in there, and she said to me that I needed discipline, and she called a recruiter for the military. I would have told, if I could go back to that point, I would tell me to do it. Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything that you're happy happened, proud that you did particularly?
Obviously my parent, obviously that I'm a parent, right? And just that I got myself out of it, because it's not, like it's really, like, and I don't want to toot my own horn, but it's really not normal for somebody that was in my situation to be able to do it, especially not really knowing how I was supposed to do it. It's just like I should be in jail.
All right.
Just look at my sister, for example. She didn't get out of it, she had aspirations of being a long haul truck driver. That's what she wanted to be. So I just think that that in of itself is a major accomplishment. Because I didn't have shit to get out of it. Like, I didn't have help from anybody. I did it. I can honestly say that I stopped doing what I'm doing on my own accord, and like all my first jobs I got on my own and kept all those jobs and kept working. It was all on my own. I didn't meet my wife until I was already like 30 years old. So it wasn't like it was meeting your wife and then all of a sudden you settle down. You know what I mean?
Okay. So I guess last thing here, what about the future, man? What do you want to come next?
I just want to raise my sons and give them a better life. I want to, keep on podcasting and hopefully retire someday with grandchildren and at least one of my sons go to university.
All right, man. Anything else you want to put out there? Anything you want to add?
This was not for people to feel sorry for me. This was for people kind of to understand where I'm coming from and maybe to get to know me and my situation a little bit better. I want to put out there that I was just as much a perpetrator as I was a victim. So, yeah, don't feel sorry for me. And just know I'm not that person anymore. Or I'm really not. It's not one of these things where, like, you can ask Dustin and Ed. I'm not. So,
I would say that me personally, after listening to this, if anyone is listening to this story and they're wondering, why I did it, what they can get out of it, if you're 16-year-old Dave, like, you don't have to be that person. You don't have to, There's always a way out if you try and you look hard enough. And I tell you what, I think it's better to die looking than to just accept your plight. So,
yeah, even if you're an adult and you're
right, I mean who you were at that point, not if you're 16 and you're into crime. I mean, like if you're busting in doors and slinging crack and you're really pushing life to its limits.
Yeah, no,
you don't have to.
I agree.
Dave, it has been a personal pleasure.
Thank you, sir.
All right. I guess that concludes this very special episode.
Thanks, guys.